I hate to say it sometimes, but look, sometimes you do got to drive the 3PL a little nuts, right?
Welcome back, listeners and viewers, to another episode of Commerce Untold. Today's guest is Leo Rodriguez, Vice President at Riverplate, a leading logistics and fulfillment partner, helping fast-growing e-commerce and retail brands scale with efficiency. Hey, Leo, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about the back-end side of things, logistics. I'd love to have your thoughts on this today, but so tell me more about Riverplates and what do you do, and we can just kick it off from there.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so we're a 3PL provider in Southern California, in the city of Simi Valley specifically. We've been around for around close to 33 years now in business, so very long time. And we're providing retail, wholesale, e-commerce, fulfillment services, along with warehousing, inventory management, and do full integrations for all the different channels, like e-com channels, EDI integrations, a lot of cloud-based networks connected with a tech stack with TMS partners, parcel partners. So a little bit of everything there essentially is we look at it as having, it doesn't matter where the brand is shipping to or whoever their customers are. We're able to connect, do the fulfillment, distribution, high-level inventory management, and make sure that that customer experience and their brand is able to scale and do well, right? So, yeah, that's in a nutshell. We can definitely dive in because, as you know, we're just an intricate component within the, as a supply chain partner, right? So there's a lot of moving parts there, but that's who we are.
So what are the biggest mistakes you see e-commerce brands make, when choosing a 3PL and how they can avoid them?
Yeah, it's a big one that always sticks out is shopping only for price. You have to dive deeper, right? How you have to look at it. It's like a 3PL isn't just right there. They're a margin protector. Really, you have to look at them as not just a vendor. It is a true partnership. They're an extension of your brand. They're your hands, eyes, and ears, are a tool in your tool belt so that you lean on for the expertise to, mitigate issues down the road, right? So if it's most brands nowadays with obviously a lot, the AI and the search engines, you're able to prompt these and get a good questionnaire or give good insight questions on what you're looking for. So there's asking the right questions more and more so now, right? But still, if you are comparing only on costs, then it could get a little dangerous, right? That's the hard one there. That sticks out. Definitely evaluate who are they working with. Years of business is huge as well. What does their network look like? Looking at giving scenarios, right? Having them break down challenges, pain points within the industry, or big part of it is having them, the collaboration of the front end of the supply chain. We're all on the back end of the supply chain. We're usually one of the last, partners to touch the product before it goes out to the market, right? So, but collaborating with your 3PL early on the stages, even, some incorporate us in like even the research and development part of it, right? Packaging, manufacturing, it's that constant communication because somehow maybe within that process, they're able to provide insight on, labeling or markings that might affect your end goal in terms of where it's going to go within the marketplace, or just alone in costs associated for inventory, controlling the inventory and injecting it into their facility, right? So it's definitely, so I guess that's the long answer. Short answer there is that outside of just cost, get the 3PL involved early, collaborate, lean on them. They've gone through a lot of trial and error, right? They've seen what's worked for brands that are scaling well and the ones that have pitfalls. So they can provide those, especially if they're, they're well-versed or well-oiled in terms of that, your specific product line or commodity, because sometimes you're stuck within, your own mind frame or your type of thinking, and you need someone else to help out and think outside that box because I guess I only focused on understanding that I wanted to plug into my Shopify and my TikTok, but didn't think about maybe prepping for other channels that simple configuration on the inner pack or the outer pack, or information to provide on configurations within just on the back end of a retail portal that need to be done well in advance. And now you're running against time. And then sometimes when you're rushing, that's when you have issues. A lot involved there.
Yeah, a lot of things involved there, and really I agree with your general comments about just 3PL is like an extension of the company. It's a trust partner. Obviously, you ship the goods, but you also get back the returns, right? And you have a lot of feedback about what's happening. And we talked about like integration to your e-commerce platform, the WMS integration, obviously the ability not just to ship and store, but you mentioned labeling, right? The kitting, the pick and pack. I mean, it's a lot of things involved and added values that can be deduced. Obviously, all the data and analytics and just insights. So it's not just a supplier to ship goods, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that are definitely involved in just engaging. And this is obviously the value that 3PLs need to provide. So what are some of the tips that you can provide, to brands, trying to probably reduce shipping cost or just to optimize, cost around delivery, just, while trying to maintain customer experience?
Sure, yeah. I think there's another one that sticks out is where let's talk about the shipping part, the parcel end of it, right? So there is definitely, there's ways to have an edge over, other brands, or just to have the overall better customer experience at the checkout, right? So there's so many, like you mentioned earlier, with having a 3PL, the collaboration with the 3PL partner are able to look at how are we going to optimize the parcel network. So diving into having a multi-carrier network, right? So a lot of the 3PLs nowadays have an umbrella of carriers. So they'll have the UPSs, the FedExes, the DHL, OSM. They might have 5, 7, 8 different carriers that they have, agreements with, or have a broker, right? And are able to leverage a TMS within a TMS, transportation management system. What you're able to do is, connect with your 3PL, really dive into understanding the item profiles. How are they actually, is it going into a poly bag? Is it going into a carton? Is there a combination of why one should go into, specifically on certain lanes or certain zones in one packaging over another? It's getting that dialed in to where, but that's all within the back end tech. Those are business rules that can be set up, parameters that can be set up to where it is able to, there's cartonization feature. And so that lingo I'm using is it's able to understand if I order item A, B, and D, with the net dimensions of whatever that might be, it knows that, you're just at this tier, put into a poly bag instead of a card, right? You're going to, and based off the business rule, if you're going to say, I want this to ship most economical, before you're just going to go static and go straight to, hey, what, my most economical looks like USPS Crowd Advantage. Well, not necessarily anymore. It's going to rate shop between all the carriers based off of the parameters set within your packaging specs and the items chosen. And then it'll know how to put those into the correct packaging size. And then instead of maybe even an inch difference can lower your rate by $1, $2, or 70 cents. Well, in volume, that makes a big difference. So we're really kind of that back end support and, leveraging the tech partners, or some have, proprietary systems set up that they're able to really dial that in and then not just only just the net dimensions, the gross dimensions, or the gross weight. Now it's really breaking it up to, okay, exactly to the zip code and shipping, and making a tweak at the shipping label processing, right? So, but that's just one part of it. But the second part of it is okay, if it's not set up properly in their ERPs systems, their order management systems, the back end of their shopping carts, the Shopify's, right? That can break easily. So big part of it, I say there is with your 3PL partner, things change. Seasonality, it changes. Peak season changes. Have that call with them, having quarterly call, maybe even sometimes if you're doing a lot of volume or you're bringing out a new product, that spending an hour or 30 minutes just looking at the parcel, your parcel network, and the data flow and your dashboard. A lot of it now you were able to offer dashboards that you can see everything, real time. It makes a big difference because, hey, or 500, a quick tweak, that's fine. And you save $1 just by making a couple toggles here and there, or switching the program or doing, that's $500 a day, right? That could have, that you could easily saved on, right? So, it's extremely important.
Yeah, and these are great examples for optimizing cost, but there is also, and I work with 3PLs and probably do that as well, there is also an opportunity for 3PLs to provide insight and feedback to even upsell, right? So all the issues of, like, for example, packaging and unboxing experience and just figuring out about, creating combination like bundles or even just trying to upsell with different products. You have so much data, you know what's going on in real time. So just having these coils and someone on the other side, on the brand side, to talk to on an ongoing basis can bring a lot of insights, for marketeers to improve, AOVs, MLTVs, and all these important KPIs.
Yeah, Eitan, yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, so that the bundling part is becoming a lot more popular, right? So you're right. These the analytics and these data, the data dashboards, they tell you your velocity. They'll tell you, what's moving, what's not moving. You could, like you said, you upsell there, and they're able to. The brands themselves are getting very smart. They're able to use also, AI programs to go ahead and filter that information and provide suggestions. That, like, again, going back to it, collaborate with your 3PL, put that into practice, right? And then you can be nimble, you can be flexible. They should be able to tweak it pretty quickly. That's the point of it, right? So, yeah.
So obviously, you do a lot of things internally, right? To optimize processes, to use data to make a smarter workflows in order to provide better service to your customers, optimizing costs. So can you take a little bit of, behind the scenes of what do you do to create this high performing fulfillment operation?
Yeah, it goes beyond just the inside of our four walls. We specifically leverage or really lean on our partners, right? We're not the experts of everything. We have to know that there is every day, there's something new that pops up that's bigger, better, faster. Getting the team together, we do a lot of briefings, right? A lot of briefings to understand, hey, is there a new tool available? Is there something that's happening within the supply chain? That's a big one lately, right? Obviously, last year, we're still seeing the effects. It was actually even before last year that you see, the unusual activity within the tariff situation, and, international shipping, and how is that affecting, your specific product, and, how you're utilizing those harmonized codes. Where do you fall into, right? So behind the scenes there is just, there's a lot of education, right? So there's and a big part of it is setting up your operations for success. And that is making sure that, the correct training protocols are being put in place with the people on the floor, right? As well, because they are still, if you have automation, they're still responsible for making sure that either automation or if you have semi-automation, or you have, some type of robotics, that's all great. But if it's not set up properly, you can have some big challenges, right? So making sure that translates from, executives to management teams to, the labor on the floor as well. That's happening every single day. It's necessary because, we're, as a 3PL, it's not one person that's going to be society. It's a big chain link, right? If there's one link in that chain that's broken, it affects, the front end and the back end. So again, education, constant training, making sure that, you're being proactive, not reactive, right? So
yes, definitely super, super interesting. And Neil, what are your thoughts on, like, fast growing brands? I mean, how do you think they should scale, operation? What's your ideal recommendation in terms of growth, or maybe even fast scale growth?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? So it's not losing sight of, who's your customer, right? It's the little things that do count, that, again, we always talk about. It's what's the feedback, especially now with how, the customers leaving reviews, right? But what can you do? What edge can you take to have the customer be wowed right? So it's again, here we go into collaboration. Some things that are happening in the marketing room on the brand end sometimes doesn't translates onto the logistics or the fulfillment or the 3PL floor, right? So because and the thing is also what happens in fast scaling brands I've seen more lately, there's a lot of reacting, right? I was talking about being proactive later, so earlier. It's reacting. The thing is, as also new hiring is that they're hiring and they're also outsourcing overseas sometimes. But maybe the again, similar to what we do, for the training protocols, they might not have the expertise in terms of logistics or don't know the lingo, don't understand it. They're also retraining. They have to be able to jump into the WMS, understand these dashboards, really read the information, understand the data. If you just have a bunch of data, a bunch of numbers and graphs and but they don't know what to do with it, it's that could be that it can be challenging, right? You'll be losing a lot there. So again, be inquisitive. I mean, I hate to say it sometimes, but look, sometimes you do got to drive the 3PL a little nuts, right? But it's their fast growing brand. Their fast growing brand, the volumes are scaling. It's to their benefit to make sure that everything's dialed in because it's a win. That's the beauty of our, in our industry. It's a win-win situation. More orders that they're processing, the better that they're doing with all their channels, the better the 3PL does, right? So, and the more that they will really truly value, that relationship that, you're going out, above and beyond that. It's just not like you're sending an email and it's just a ticket number and you're getting a response, a day later. Like, no, let's go ahead. As I understand, you brought in 2-3 new people in your procurement or in your logistics coordinator that they need to be now, you want to make it as seamless as possible, right? So it's a lot of it is just adding, new personnel or just, or they're bringing on other vendors that might impact what's the, decision-making or processes that are happening within the fulfillment logistics world, right? So.
Yes. And obviously don't lose track of your customers. Just keep communicating with them, understand what's going on, even if the volumes are increases dramatically. And this is very, very important. This is sort of related to my next questions about how that is the role of fulfillment centers, DPLs in customer retention, right? And LTV specifically.
Yeah. Big one that sticks out there is, and it could get messy, is, it also depends on the brand. It's like the returns processing, reverse logistics. They want to, depending on the commodity or depending on the product, you might have, these are repeat customers. A lot of them could be repeat customers, right? So let's just take an example in the apparel world, right? You have usually higher percentage in returns, right? So, there, some of these, as a consumer or a buyer, you might buy, 3 different dresses, right? Different sizes and return 2 of them, right? Now, once it hits the facility, what's that processing time? How often is that customer being pinged on the status, but being really strict and also at the same time being strict within your returns policy, making sure that you don't leave gray area. These are the expectations in terms of the process step and stick to them, right? On our end of it is to be, what the brand is really, or the brand themselves need is, sometimes it's not just as simple as just grab it and just put it into a specific category. We might be doing, a category, if it's a return to sender that's, it hasn't been tampered with, it goes back into stock. Sometimes, a poly bag is torn, new labeling, hang tags need to be put on. There's a QC protocol checklist. Is there stains? Is there tears? How quick can you do that? And then put it, and maybe sometimes we'll go into, I was saying, there's a secondary market, maybe a different SKU that they can use for, a liquidation program or outside of just their regular maybe e-commerce or their full price items. But it's really the speed and communication, right? Is that information flowing back from the return, that those RAs, RMAs, right, getting back into the system of the brand so that they're able to communicate back into to the client and be able to process a return, refund if necessary, because usually sometimes those refund process don't happen until those protocols or those procedures, those SOPs happen, those details happen at the facility, right? In high volume, it could get tough, right? So to be sure, yeah.
Sure. And I'm very, very interested in, just from the brand perspective, what are let's say, the major KPIs that the brand needs to track when evaluating the logistics performance?
Yes, that's a great question. Right, immediately is speed of service is a big one. Speed of service, and again, most of these 3PLs will be able to at real time show you these KPIs volumes at just a click of filters, right? Filtering, by day, by week, by month, accuracy, huge one. Top tier fulfillment centers are 99.7%, 99.8% accurate across all channels, across all inventory, componentry, finished goods, semi-finished goods is extremely important. Those are the top two that stick out, right? So speed of service and accuracy. Those are the ones. And then a big one there, if you're outside of just e-commerce, retail is a lot more. You're seeing that if you know the world, that chargebacks are huge, right? In the retail, like the Walmarts, the Targets, Kohl's of the world, they'll any either on the tech side or the integration information ASN side, delivery times, if anything is outside of within their parameters or rules, you're going to get, they're heavy chargeback. And sometimes, a lot of times, you don't see that 7-8 months down the road, some of those reports. So making sure that, so sometimes those KPIs are kind of hard. Since a lot of them are by violation codes, you need to be able to speak that language for your brand and be able to dial it, because sometimes it looks like, oh, it's a 3PL's fault for those KPIs. Was there something done on the front end that wasn't, again, configured correctly that resulted in a chargeback or left the 3PL vulnerable for a chargeback, right? It's not, again, it's a partnership. You have to work together on that. So it was massive. Yeah.
So they were great KPIs. And what about the other side of the coin, right? The red flags that brands needs to identify when they're evaluating the 3PL performance.
Sure. Yeah. A big part of it is not having, look, if right off the bat, if they're looking at, if they're looking to, hey, you can have just access to my portals or my systems, and you pull information from there by our logins and credentials, that's a red flag. This should be nowadays for all these different marketplaces and channels. There is the API connections or EDI. There's ways to connect these cards directly into a warehouse management system or a management system, combination of those. That is an automatic one, right? You'll see a lot of inquiries coming in, and one thing that we talk about when talk about the automation or connection is like, well, the current 3PL is using is like, yeah, we just give them the backend login of our Shopify, and then they'll grab that information and download files and upload them into a ship management system. Look, in reality, if you're only doing, a handful of orders a day, is it detrimental? No. Is that scalable? Absolutely not. It's not, right? So that's one that's sticks out as a something there. Really, it's not nowadays or even beforehand. Having a direct CSM, really someone in between the brand and the operations team on the floor, along with specialists or team members around them that really get to know your brand, the insides and outs. A lot big brands, they want a dedicated account manager. They really want a name. They don't want just, a ticket, right? And it's just, hey, do they even know what's coming up in the forecast? That's, I don't know if I would maybe categorize that. Maybe I'll say that's more of a yellow flag, because I can't speak for all 3PLs. Right. I just know that the bigger brands is that they want that because things are changing rapidly. Not everything in the supply chain, nothing, what you think that's going to happen 2 months from now. Once that 2 months comes up, everything just got turned upside down. Now, along that journey in the process, how involved was that direct CSM or that account manager cooperating with your brand and then the operations team to prep? So, because that could be a big sale, a flash sale that's coming up, a new launch, mod set for these big retailers are expecting that POs to be delivered because that's going on the shelf. So that's massive there as well. So, that's a red flag. If they're not able to confirm or provide details of who's going to be the personnel behind the scenes that's going to manage your brand and be communicating with the operations and make sure everything's well oiled. And also just on the operations end, it's, the IT directors, making sure those are the testing integration and be able to give you that comfort. Okay, that's the steps to get you ready for your launch or for your distribution program. Logistics programs have been tested and are ready to go.
Yes. And Leo, what are some of the trends or like major events that you see in logistics, right, that will impact, e-commerce over the next few years?
Yeah. So the big one I know the buzzword is everything that's coming out with these AI genic, programs, chatbots, being able to, not every, you've seen that the trend or the transition into not just these black box systems, these softwares, or that are only you have them there, but you have about three or four other partner platforms that it's having your tech stack kind of play nice. It's been difficult. You're seeing now more and more that collaboration is coming a lot easier. There's AI software, there's AI systems out there that are going to bring that all together. But what's amazing about that is giving you're now you're running with it instead of walking. You're getting that information quicker. It's able to predict. So now you're getting, you're able to predict way in advance and information that you had, internal teams do data crunching to kind of figure out what's going to happen. In our world, it's even before it hits the dock. It's information that's coming in from these channels that know where it's going to be placed within the warehouse, where way in advance before actually hits it hits the doors, the dock doors, right? So it's able to maneuver and provide guidance, and then essentially give you the steps or specs all at your fingertips, which is massive, which all translates back to the brand, because now you're just able to not eliminate, TD emails maybe, right? And just the 3PLs already providing you, with valuable information that you don't have to crunch anymore. You just now have that at your fingertips. You can move on to other parts of the business of your marketing and, and other information that you have to digest, since there's so much of it nowadays, right? So that's big.
So Leah, tell us more about the type of customers you are looking for. Are there any specific niche, size? Tell us more about your ICP.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's we have been really, for the last, we'll say, 9-10 years, really exploded big into actually the B2B, these big box retail that shipping directly to these DCs or consolidation zones. Since we're in Southern California, Simi Valley, we're actually considered in a consolidation zone. It's been a big leverage. Instead of having to ship individually to all the different DCs, we're able to go to a local hub and they do the distribution in collect programs. That's a big advantage to these brands. So we do really well with toys. Our niche for over 20 something years was actually the beauty industry. So skincare, hair care, cosmetics. We've had a lot of team members in management on the floor that we've had over 10, 15 years plus, some going into 20 something years. There's still beyond the old AI, all the tech stuff. There's a lot of value that brings in. What I mean by that is, like, from the different, just alone on the product side, they are able to just see the outside the packaging, understand the inside. Like, they'll be able to know that this stuff, do we look for debris in the product? Is there certain language that needs to be there? Right there, there is just getting files or getting information on spreadsheets, or doing the upload, whatever it is in the system. But that's all virtual information. Physical product on the floor, something that an operations director or a manager, someone in the receiving end, they're able to flag things much quicker. It's been huge. But and I like to say that on the especially on the beauty side of it. But yeah, toys, beauty. But we're pretty diverse now. That was now I would do a lot of lifestyle brands. Big one there is that we're doing very well, and our clients are really excited. There's a lot of these influencer entrepreneurs. They're on their their social selling product, social media. Very smart, savvy, doing these flash sale launches, or really building up a new product that's about to launch, and they need to move quick. And it's usually a big sale, then it goes like it's steady, and then another big sale pretty quickly, right? But it's all like there's a big build up on the social media channels. We've done a really good, I think, overall. Of course, I'm biased. I'm going to say we're great at it, but a lot of great feedback on our flexibility and being nimble there, being able to adapt to, a new opportunity that they have in sales, and being able to connect and put a process in place to make sure that it doesn't look like it was rushed on their end, right? So yeah, these lifestyle brands that are selling goods, virtually on their social media platforms, the TikToks, the Instagrams, right, the Facebook marketplace. Like there's been that it's been a big advantage. I feel like overall. So
Okay, great. So, Leo, how a brand retailer, how they can find you and River Plate?
yeah, so it's these leads just go to our website, www.riverplateinc.com. They can find myself on LinkedIn, Leo Rodriguez or River Plate Inc. We have we started a new revamp of our whole marketing program. I mean, look, been around for 30 something years, but really didn't put ourselves much out there. We were always very cautious on, quality, not quantity. But now, like we're, 8,000 square feet with another 30 something thousand square feet and growing on a separate facility, but also just very, very, very cautious, right? It's again, there's slow inquiries come in and we just want to make sure, hey, this is between both parties. It's a long-term relationship. It's a failure if it's a short-term relationship. No one wants, a partner to have to switch immediately, right? There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. Usually they're able to go directly to our website, fill out, the, RFQ or send an email to the sales@riverplateinc.com and we get in contact within a business day, right? So have a discovery call. Let's just see if this if it aligns. If not, we try to provide some direction, like, hey, like this is, we might not be the best fit. There's, you might look for XYZ, so which is great.
Sure. Right. Yeah. So anything else you want to add?
You know what, Eitan, I think I spoke a lot. My mouth is dry. I feel all is great. I hope the listeners get some value. And I appreciate you having me on.
Okay, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best and good luck.
Excellent. Thank you, Eitan. Appreciate it. Take care, everyone.